Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Stephanie, and today I want to finish up part 4 of how Disney canon got Luke wrong. Talk about Return of the Jedi and basically the return of the hero. Return of all of the heroes, but this is about Luke. Can't really now talk about Luke without talking about everybody else. So, I want you to enjoy it. Sit back. We're going to again look at Star Wars, The Magic of Myth, and this has been a fun ride for me, and it's going to be a fun ride for you. This is Stephanie. Let's go have some fun, and let's learn something about what Star Wars really is and where Disney went wrong, because we'll discuss it after. First, a little side note. I want to talk a little bit about Luke's. There's a deleted scene in Return of the Jedi where it shows Luke completing his new lightsaber, the green one that we all became well familiar with in Return of the Jedi, and I want to talk a little bit about that. To complete training, a Jedi must seek out a kyber crystal, and the kyber crystal, apparently, I think this is what the lore says, takes on a certain color. Luke's personal lightsaber, the one that he built himself, took on the color of green, which means he is a light side user only. And once a Jedi builds his own lightsaber, his training is complete. This was left out of the movie, but it's significant later when Vader looks at the lightsaber in his hands and says, I've seen you built your own lightsaber, your training is complete. So basically what that means is that Luke is now a full-fledged Jedi with his powers only likely to grow, and him growing stronger in the Force as the movie progresses and as his life progresses from Jedi to Master Jedi to Master Jedi to Grandmaster Jedi. So the building of the lightsaber is very, very significant in this. And the next video I'll do in this series will be talking about talismans. And the biggest talisman in Star Wars is Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. The one he built, the one that was given to Luke, the one that ended up being inherited for some reason by Rey. Okay, so let's go to page 91, The Hero Returns, Star Wars, Classic Mythology, Star Wars, The Magic of Myth. In the beginning of the trilogy, the object of the quest was clear. The heroes set out to rescue the princess and slay the dragon. Midpoint, The Empire Strikes Back, the quest turned inward to explore and develop the heart and spirit of each hero. Now the focus turns outward again in order to bring the themes, motifs introduced in the first film to a final and ambivalent conclusion. Return of the Jedi begins. Luke has achieved a traditional fairy tale triumph, that of the ordinary child who has grown into mastery of extraordinary powers. He has tapped into the powers of the Force, given up the illusions of his youth, and attained a higher level of maturity and understanding. He is now ready for the hero's return, in which he will translate his newfound knowledge and skills into actions. But this will not be an easy transition for Luke. Credibility is always the most difficult part of the hero's return, and Luke's abilities will be doubted by friend and foe alike. When Luke left Tatooine, he was a simple but lovable lad with a prize-winning smile. Now he will have to work hard to change his image and translate his insights into a form that can be understood by those who have not shared his experiences. And because of his training was incomplete, Luke will suffer at times from both disregard and misunderstanding. His first test will come at the palace of Jabba the Hutt. And now we get into themes of resurrection. Third film of the trilogy, each of the heroes faces enormous tasks and discovers new inner resources that allow him or her to triumph. Alright, we're going to talk a little bit about Leia. Leia goes through a lot of transformation. She basically forces her way into Jabba's court in the disguise as a bounty hunter to rescue Han from his carbonite tomb And I've talked about this before in a previous video, so we won't get too much into it. But Luke has to come and rescue them because they're both, again, swept up in the maw of basically the underworld. And we're going to go to page, let's see, 495, 96, 97, Monster Combat. In Myth, one of the ways in which the hero proves himself as is through hand-to-hand combat. The hero of the Anglo-Saxon poem Beowulf, for example, kills the man-eating monster Grendel in a wrestling match. In the best heroic style, Luke is able to vanquish the horrific rancor without his lightsaber. But the sense of triumph is also short-lived, as Jabba decides that Luke, Han, and Chewie will walk the plank pirate style. The consumption motif reappears, for the heroes are to be swallowed up by the Sarlacc, and Sarlacc, the Dune Sea's equivalent of a huge, ravenous shark. This whole section is rife with images of consumption, as we watch Jabba gobble down a squirming animal and see the rogue creature outside the palace gates snap up a helpless morsel. But the heroes now have the strength to withstand the powers that would devour them, and although Luke is forced to the very edge of the plank, much as Vader pushed him to the edge of the gantry platform in Cloud City, Luke is indeed a new person now. When a guard moves to shove him, Luke jumps off by himself, flips back onto the floating skiff, catches his lightsaber thrown by R2. The striking style of action marks Luke as having achieved other characteristics of the classical Greek hero, arete, excellence. While this group of heroes fights its way free, Leia takes matters into her own hands, strangling Jabba herself. The heroes now have triumphed over the dark road of trials, and they are ready physically and spiritually for the final showdown. Page 101, the resurgence of evil. Regeneration is not just the province of the good, however. Evil, too, has a tendency to rise again. In Greek mythology, this resurgence is symbolized by the monster Hydra, with its dog-like body and many snaky heads. Whenever one of these heads is cut off, two new ones spring up in its place. The hero Hercules finally vanquishes this monster with the help of his nephew Iolaus. As Hercules cuts off each of Hydra's heads, Iolaus applies a blazing branch to the stumps, preventing more heads from growing. In Star Wars mythology, the resurgence of evil takes the form of a new Death Star, under construction by the Empire, even while the Rebel Alliance has continued to struggle against its tyranny. Now, while Luke returns to Dagobah to complete his training, the Emperor arrives at the new Death Star. The Emperor represents the essence of the monster that is the Galactic Empire. He is all ego with no spirit, locked within a fortress of hate and aggression. Looking much like the Grim Reaper, the very embodiment of death, he transforms the world around him into a wasteland that is in danger of becoming one giant machine. The only person who can penetrate that dark castle with a spark of divine fire is the hero whose heart and spirit have become whole and integrated. Ben appears on Dagobah, remember, to tell Luke that Leia is his twin sister. They're paternal twins, okay? Which are twins that are born but don't look alike. Divine twins are found throughout mythology, from the Romans Romulus and Remus, to the Greeks Apollo and Artemis, to the Norse Freyr and Freya. Leia in many ways represents Luke's anima, the feminine side of his own nature. With this knowledge, Luke's integration of the opposites within him, light and dark, masculine and feminine, is almost complete. Again, we have the Enchanted Forest. Of course, Lando Calrissian has redeemed himself and is leading the rebel attack with the X-Wing pilots and the other fighter pilots against the Death Star. Han and Luke and Leia travel with a group of, what we'd say, in our vernacular, special operators that are highly skilled soldiers to take out the shield generator so the fighters can go in and blow up the Death Star. But Luke, while he's on Endor, which is the Enchanted Forest with the helpful animals, Endor, and it contains a certain sorcery for once again the path that has led the heroes into the magical forest. They are confronted by the small furry Ewoks who, like all elves, fairies, and other inhabitants of fairy tale forests, may be either dangerous or helpful. The Ewoks' lush green environment and harmony with nature make a warm contrast to the austere cult technology of the Empire. And so, while they go into the forest and are confronted with the Ewoks after chasing Imperial scout troopers on speeder bikes, people are transformed again. Leia, while she's in the Ewok village, wears a soft animal skin dress and lets down her magnificent hair, perhaps reflecting the subtle magic of the Ewoks' connection to the natural world. Their creative powers are shown by the fact that they are the only creatures in the trilogy shown with children. It also is I think, symbolic example of how she's changed as a woman. Letting her hair down like that is very symbolic of growing up, of becoming an adult female. No longer is she wearing white, which was a big thing in A New Hope, and through a part of The Empire Strikes Back, till we get to Cloud City. Okay? Leia has crossed into womanhood. The Ewoks take C-3PO for some kind of deity. Now we all remember, why don't you use your divine influence and get us out of this mess? And then 3PO says to Han, well, it wouldn't be proper. And Han grabs his blaster and all hell breaks loose. Throughout the trilogy, C-3PO's voyage has mirrored the hero's journey, but in an ironic way. He has been caught up in the quest, dismembered and reborn, and yet now he receives the adulation of a hero's apotheosis. Yet he has remained his own limited self, and he is now quite helpless to prevent the Ewoks from preparing a ritual feast whose main course will be the heroes themselves. Luke, however, uses his Jedi powers to impress them, and now he is the one with the magic to evoke the help needed. C-3PO finally achieves his transformation later that evening as he captivates the audience gathered around the fire with the story of the heroes' adventures, a story that will no doubt become myth for the Ewoks. Inspired by 3PO's story, the Ewoks will join forces with the rebel band, battling the high technology of the Empire with logs, stones, and vines. Chewbacca captures a walker, and Han uses it to trick the Imperials into opening the door to the shield generator. At last, the rebels succeed in blowing up the generator and demolishing the protective shield, clearing the way for Lando's strike force on the Death Star's reactive core. Throughout this final phase of the trilogy, the new heroes are made as the crisis demands it. Luke, Han, and Leia have become mature leaders who inspire others. Thus, it is Chewie who saves the day at the shield bunker. Lando and Wedge will blow up the Death Star. Ultimately, it is Vader himself who destroys the Emperor. Luke again descends into the underworld, and he understands that he has to leave to go on a different path from his friends and reach out to that part of Darth Vader that is still Anakin Skywalker, to turn him away from the dark side. Luke's trip into the second Death Star is another descent into the underworld, a classic theme, again, that we remember from Greek and Roman mythology. Hercules brings his friend Theseus back from Hades. Aeneas journeys there to converse with his father, Anchises. Now, Luke will confront his own father and discover whether atonement is possible. In the final stage, the hero quest, a physical conflict raging on Endor and around the Death Star mirrors Luke's spiritual conflict as he engages into a battle of wills with the Emperor. Luke has been separated from the common people, his rebel friends, and with the Emperor and Lord Vader, he must watch the conflict from a distance, as though looking down from Mount Olympus. These three are above the battle, directing the affairs of others. It's kind of a quite interesting motif if you think about it. The Emperor now is the monster at the heart of Death Star's labyrinth. He is the Minotaur to Theseus in the maze, and the Guardian is Vader, who is half man, half machine. The Emperor has been given great power, but he has refused to use it for his people. He has subverted his leadership role to serve his own ego. This has stifled the flow of life force of the galaxy, and the hero must unlock and release this energy so that it may flow once more. For Luke, this means reasserting the most vital human values in the face of the Empire's encroaching technological sterility. The final encounter, the Emperor alternately offers Luke a position alongside his father and the opportunity to replace him. Yoda did warn Luke of his feelings of anger, fear, and aggression, open spirit to the dark side of the Force. The Emperor plays on this now, taunting Luke, offering to return his lightsaber. The hate is swelling within you now, the Emperor says. Take your Jedi weapon, use it. I am unarmed. Give in to your rage. Give in to your anger. Battle within Luke grows fierce as he struggles to contain his fear and rage, forced to stand by while his friends are in mortal danger, assured by the Emperor that they cannot succeed. Luke faces the ultimate crisis and then turns to face his father and the darkness of his own soul. Atonement with his father. We remember the lightsaber battle. It's probably, I think, one of the best lightsaber battles, if not the best, filmed in a Star Wars movie. And as Luke is taunted by Vader with the revelation, his own feelings revealed Leia, Luke becomes enraged, beats Vader to a pulp, cuts off his hand, and looks at his own hand and realizes that he was literally, he is on his way to becoming the next Darth Vader. And so he casts aside his lightsaber, mastering his worst instincts and refusing to obey the Emperor's command. Enraged, the Emperor uses his own dark powers of the lightning to zap Luke. As Luke pleads with his father for help, the crucial moment has arrived. Will Darth Vader redeem himself? Will Luke achieve the atonement with his father that marks the final passage on his journey? The process of becoming one with the Father is one of the great archetypal themes found in mythology from so many cultures. The twin warriors of the Navajo, for example, go on search for their father, the sun. He puts them through terrible trials, tests, throwing them at sharp spikes, boiling them in an overheated sweat lodge, and poisoning them with a smoking pipe. When he is last satisfied with their courage and skills, he admits them as his sons. Vader acknowledged that Luke is his son at the end of The Empire Strikes Back. Now he must act on that knowledge for atonement to occur. Vader's true nature has been imprisoned by the system, but within him still resides all the life potentialities, to use Joseph Campbell's term, that once belonged to Anakin Skywalker. Now he has a chance to fulfill one of those potentialities, that of the hero and savior. Luke, too, must find a new life potentiality within himself, that of the child who cannot perform the task on his own. He renews his own life and makes renewal possible for his civilization by rediscovering the child within. In his confrontation with Vader and the Emperor, Luke does not use his warrior skills, but rather an appeal to the heart. "Father, please help me," he cries, as the Emperor is about to destroy him. And at last, Vader seizes his master in order to save his son. As the Emperor's lethal electric charges rain down back on Vader, he throws his former master into the shaft at the core of the Death Star. Regeneration has occurred within the very walls of the tyrant's kingdom. Vader has detached himself from his evil master and has been transformed through his son. Vader has become a tragic persona, and his own suffering is now the supreme monstrosity with which he must contend. Vader's hero quest has only been hinted at because, like so many heroes' journeys, the heroic feats and monster tests he must overcome take place within. Vader is, in a sense, a fallen angel who reveals his true essence at last. Unmasking. One of the overarching themes in Return of the Jedi is a stripping away of disguises to reveal the true being within. Leia, for example, first appears in the film in a tough disguise and hard mask. We might see this as symbolic of her original persona. When this is stripped away, she reveals herself to be a sensual and loving woman as well. In cultures where myths are acted out as part of a ritual, masks serve several purposes. In Africa, masks have been used to ward off enemies, to summon ancestors, and to celebrate alliances among tribes. The mask can also invoke supernatural beings. Vader's mask is the most visible aspect of his demonic persona. It is also part of the machinery that supports his life, even as it robs him of his personal identity as a human being. As the Death Star is racked by explosions from the Rebel barrage, Luke tries to carry his father to safety. They collapse as they reach the main docking bay of the Death Star. Vader insists that Luke remove his helmet and mask, although it will mean his certain death. The face that is revealed is a deeply scarred yet strangely unformed, undifferentiated face. As Campbell puts it, the message is clear. One cannot develop one's humanity by serving a system. The final victory. As the rebels celebrate the release of the galaxy from bondage to the Emperor, Luke gives his father a hero send-off by placing his armor on a funeral pyre. In myth and ritual, the fire is associated with purification, and the hero's spirit is thought to rise on the smoke to the heavens. The Greek hero Hercules is carried up to Olympus from his funeral pyre and made one with the gods. Anakin, having attained grace through his love for his son, undergoes similar apotheosis. As Luke rejoins his friends, he looks back to see his father has yet been reunited with Ben and Yoda to form a triad of Jedi Knights. The wisdom and compassion of the age, the wisdom and compassion of the sage. I'd say the sage would be Ben, the sage would be Yoda, Saint Ben, and the warrior hero Anakin. Now live on in Luke, the atonement is complete. Joseph Campbell sums up this transcendent moment in this way. The hero, for a moment, rises to a glimpse of the source. He beholds the face of the Father, understands, and the two are atoned. For the Son, who has grown to really know the Father, the agonies of the ordeal are readily borne. The world is no longer a vale of tears, but a bliss-yielding perpetual manifestation of the presence. By the end of the trilogy, Luke, who first appeared in Star Wars as an untested youth, has completed the final task of the mythic hero's journey. He has brought back from his adventures the boon which will allow society to live and grow. And that's where I'm going to stop with Luke's journey. I do want to add that what's interesting is how the writer brought up the fact that Luke, in order to truly gain the atonement with his father that he needed to complete his journey, he had to ask him for help and literally go back to being that child. And Vader, Anakin, responded to his pleas. And when you see Vader's face for the first time, it is, to me, a face of a gentle but masculine man. And that is the face of Anakin Skywalker. That is the man that he was, scarred and ruined by the dark side as he had been. Still, he is there, and we all see it. And that whole father-son relationship at the end is truly, to me, one of the most amazing moments, I think, in cinema history. And it's also something to remember in where, again, Disney got it wrong. When you watch the sequel trilogy, even The Force Awakens is an attack on fatherhood. It is not a search for the father, and we all know at least who won through the antagonist's father is. At least we think we know. That's Han. We don't know who Rey's father is, but now, after some certain revelations, we kind of assume that that's also Han. And there's almost no way that Kylo Ren can make that hero's journey and atone with his own father because of what he did. And the sequel trilogy, therefore, makes no sense. And that is where Disney got it wrong, if you go by George Lucas's vision. It makes no sense in any way how the OT worked out Luke's journey, Han's journey, Leia's journey. It doesn't make any sense for any of them that Kylo Ren can be redeemed and gain atonement with his father if he butchered him, and he did. Okay? We have to be honest with that. So that in of itself is the biggest problem I think any of us should have with Disney's sequel trilogy, where they went off the rails like the train in the movie The Fugitive. I mean, and had a great big old pile up. And it just got worse with the horror story that is The Last Jedi, because even, and I did a video on this, Rian Johnson himself said that he has daddy issues. Okay? So I want you all to kind of take this and run with it, and understand that that is where Disney went wrong, is the very essence of Star Wars, is the hero's journey from fool, aka the youth, to atonement, and to gaining the boon, atonement with his father, gaining a boon for their civilization. I don't know what they're gonna do to fix it. Hopefully JJ and Mr. Lucas can come up with an idea to bring Star Wars back the way it's supposed to be, which is fathers and children, atonement, the hero's journey from foolish youth to grown-up adult, and gaining the virtues and realizing the virtues that one has gained through the journey. And that would probably be Rey. So anyway, the next one I think I'm going to do is on either Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber and talismans and MacGuffins, or maybe one about good versus evil in Star Wars, and where Disney got wrong. But for now, Luke Skywalker's been discussed, and I had a great time doing this. I hope you all enjoyed it. This is Steph signing out. See you around the galaxy.